Hey guys, Phil here. This is something a little special. What you're about to watch is a peek behind the curtain at a call from my private coaching program, Beyond the Game. In this video, we listen in on a group call with one of my coaches, elite performance coach Elliot Rowe. Elliot has worked with plenty of high performers at the top of their fields through direct one-on-one coaching like he's done with me, and other products like his book, A-Game Poker, his course, A-Game Poker Masterclass, and the Prime Mind app. You can find his links down below. Now let's get right into the video. Hello, Beyond the Game. Hey, good to see everybody. As you can see, we are joined by the great Elliot Rowe. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no worries. Bill, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, thanks for coming up on a Friday afternoon or Friday evening for some of you guys if you're in Europe. So greatly appreciated. Today, I'm going to be giving a talk on high performance. It's going to start relatively general, and then we're going to focus in on poker. We're then going to do a very short hypnotherapy exercise, and then we're going to go into the Q&A. So that's what today looks like. And I'm going to jump into that now, and I'm just going to share my screen. Just a couple of things as we're going along. If you do have questions, I can try and answer. If there's comments and questions, I can try and have a look as I'm going through. But still put them in the chat if you see something in the talk that's a question, and then we can answer those in the Q&A section at the end as well. So I hope most people know who I am from Phil mentioning me over the years and other professional poker players. I've been a mindset and performance coach since 2010. And I've spent the last now 14 years helping people reach the top of the world in different industries. So poker, UFC, business, Olympics, et cetera, et cetera. So I've now done over 15,000 hours of these types of sessions. And the majority of those sessions that I've done have been with high performers. And I think I'm reaching the stage of there are very few people in the world who've done more one-to-one high performance sessions with people at the caliber that I'm working at. A lot of the time, coaches who are working at the level I'm working are only doing a few hours a week. I really enjoy it. So I still work 20 odd hours a week of client sessions rather than just doing sort of mass calls or doing the large public speaking events and such. So I'm just getting this context of what high performers are doing all day, every single day. And I get to see the difference between those who are being successful and those who aren't. And I get to see the themes in these different high performers in different industries, and certainly in poker. Yeah, I've seen a lot over the years as to what makes players reach the very, very highest level of the game and what holds other players back. So today we're going to be covering some of those things. I've also written a book on this, A-Game Poker. So check out the book if you haven't. It's available on Audible as well, so I can read the book to you. And I have an app, Prime Mind, which utilizes hypnotherapy to help you prep for poker sessions, get better sleep, confidence, those sorts of things as well. So this is my belief for almost every industry, and I've certainly seen it to be true in poker. And that's only the 1% make the serious rewards in any industry. And sort of the top 5% of an industry, they can make a living. And then 95% of an industry effectively don't make any money, or they're break even, they're losing money, or they're not really making very much. It's not really worthwhile. And the starting point of all of this for you guys to think about is what's the difference? And we're going to be talking about all of those differences as we go through of that top 1%. And is it actually that much extra work? A quote around this that I quite like is sort of the extra 20% of work makes your life 80% easier. And realistically, there's not a huge difference between those who are in the 1% and those who are in the 90%. But there are some subtle differences, and there's a level of effort that needs to be put in, but that effort is just worth so much more money. So I see this in poker. I see this with the traders that I work with, which is even more exponential than poker. I mean, I've got traders where, I've genuinely taken people where they started with me with a couple of $100,000 and they're now 9-figure earners. They now have 9 figures. So, I mean, I've seen people rise through the ranks in trading at levels that it's just not possible to in poker. And it's just the same thing. The very top people make all of the money. Same in professional sports. The person who's number 10 in the world makes nothing like the money of the person who's number 1. Like the person who's number 1 might make multiples of the money of the guy who's number 10, number 20 in the world. And they're not multiples better. They're very slightly better, but that's enough to have an edge. And what I'd like to think about, where can I get these extra edges in poker? What are the things that I can do? What are the uncomfortable things other people don't want to do? Because typically that's where the biggest edges are found. So anything that you think, oh, I really don't want to spend my time doing that, I really don't want to put in that extra bit of effort, more likely than not, that's also what your competition are thinking. And that's where the easiest gain comes from. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we're going through this, and have a think about what's triggering you and what isn't triggering you. What are the tough sort of decisions to make? Decisive action. This is something that's probably more relevant when I'm giving business talks. But in high performers, I see that there's a theme of them making decisions quickly and making the uncomfortable decisions fast rather than waiting for them to run out. So when it comes to firing decisions, I see my most successful CEOs, if someone's not performing, they're willing to let them go. Another one is CEOs looking for investment in companies. A lot of CEOs come to me because that's the hardest part of their job. They find it extraordinarily uncomfortable asking for investment. And a lot of the time, they'll put off those calls and those conversations until they're desperate, and then they'll get worse terms. And the successful CEOs are making those phone calls early because they know in 6 months, in a year, they're going to need funding. And the unsuccessful CEOs leave it to the last minute because they don't want to face rejection. We see it in everything, but in poker, it's going to be more around the, hey, my particular strategy coach, am I happy? Do I want to keep working with them? Hey, my poker network, am I happy with my current poker network? Do I need to make any changes? Hey, am I happy in my local area? Should I be moving to another time zone? One of the easiest edges to get for an MTT player who lives in Europe is to move to South America, right? That's a very hard decision to make, but is the easiest EV you will ever get in your life. Because if you're on a time zone where you're playing in the waking hours and your opponents are playing at 5 in the morning, you have an automatic edge. And that's the sort of thing I'm talking about here. It's like there is a decisive action you can take to get an edge over your competition. Are you someone who's going to make that decisive action and move quickly and change your life, or are you someone who's not going to do that? Right, curiosity over criticism. One of the themes I've seen with people who've genuinely been number one in the world is they've been interested as to what their competition is doing differently to them. So when they're talking about their competition, even though they might not be performing at the same level as this particular client, they're saying, I wonder what they're doing. I wonder why they're doing that. Why are they playing this hand in a different way? It doesn't make sense to me. What do they know that I don't? When I'm talking to people who are top 30 in the world, a lot of the time I hear my opponents are wrong. Aren't they stupid, Elliot? So what I would say is really focus in on this. Be curious about what others are doing. You're in an environment of highly intelligent people. Even if you're better than someone, there's a chance they know something that you don't. And have curiosity rather than a, hey, I'm right, they're wrong. You can build a lot of confidence with the, oh, everything I'm doing is perfect, but it's a false confidence and it doesn't let you reach the truly elite levels. So play that in the back of your mind as you're thinking through your poker. And then winner's mindset. You've got to want to win. The realistic thing is certainly, like, we think about sports, we think about poker, we think about trading. There is a lot of money in these things, and they're things that other people wish they could do. And with that being the case, if you're not giving it 100%, it's extraordinarily difficult to become elite. Very few part-time poker players become elite poker players. Really focusing in, truly deciding to become a true professional. I mean, you guys are all doing this course, which is, it puts you probably in the 1% already because the effort you're putting in and the networking that you're doing and what you're learning from Phil. But it's sort of this in every part of your poker career to try and understand that other people really, really want this. I believe Google says there's 100 million poker players in the world. Health and fitness, you just can't get away with it. If you look at the high rollers now, there are very, very few out of shape poker players. That's not by chance. Typically, you can focus better if you're in better shape, and that's worth a lot of money. In the cash games, Sometimes, as I'm sure some of you know, those cash games can run for 48 hours. A lot of the money is made when the weaker players are exhausted. You've got to get yourself in the best shape that you possibly can to have the best level of performance in poker. Um, I recommend taking it very seriously. For me personally, I have a personal trainer 5 days a week. Those are blocked in my calendar before any of my clients can book in. And I'm doing this because I've seen the impact that I've seen that it's had for my clients. And I definitely know I perform better with my clients if I'm actively working hard on my fitness than if I'm not. It's not about trying to become a model, but it's about trying to look after yourself, your health, having self-respect, and understanding that your performance will just improve. I could do a whole talk on diet, nutrition, etc. as they're going to come up. Um, it's trial and error for all of these things. I don't think there's a right and wrong. There are different things for different bodies. And hire a professional if you're at the high stakes. Have someone guide you through it. These aren't things that you need to solve individually. There are plenty of health professionals in the health and fitness industry. So yeah, outsource this. I outsource it to a personal trainer. If I didn't have a personal trainer turn up 5 days a week, and Phil said, "Hey, Elliot, can you do a session at 9 a.m. on a Monday?" I would say, "Yes, Phil." If my trainer's turning up, I'm going to say, "No, I've got a personal training session." It's worth investing that money just to make sure it happens if that's something that's within your budget. Sleep is incredibly important. Um, I had a sleep coach for a while, Molly Eastman. Highly recommend her, sleepisaskill.com. There are a lot of things you can do to improve your sleep. You'll perform better if you're getting 7 hours of sleep a night. That seems to be the optimal from the research. It's around 7 hours of sleep. For poker players, it can be very difficult, and that's something you're going to have to work around to some extent. Trying to follow the same sleep cycles each and every day, to going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, getting sunlight in the morning. There are a lot of things you can do to improve your quality of sleep. I recommend getting an Aura ring to track it. It will keep you honest if you're tracking your sleep every day and you're getting a score and you're basically judging this through the months, through the years. I've had one of these for years and years now. But just be mindful. So far, I hope that all of you know almost everything that I've said. So nothing here should be revolutionary. Like, it might be slightly interesting, but nothing should be revolutionary. So why the fuck can't you do it? And this is the key point here, is everyone already knows what to do. This is very simplistic stuff, but there's something inside you that's stopping you from doing the things you know how to do. And the way that I describe this is, if you don't know what to do, you need a strategy coach. If you know what to do, but you're not able to bring yourself to do it, that's when you need a mindset coach. And this is all of the work that I do and my team does, is helping poker players understand, yes, you know what to do, right? What's the block? How do we work through the block? How do we make sure you actually fulfill your potential here? So why would we pick up fears like this in childhood? I believe that fear is an evolutionary tool that was really, really useful for about 100,000 years. So if you imagine you're in the jungle with your mum, you're 3 years old, your mum sees a tiger and she starts freaking out. It's really useful for that child to then be scared every time they see a tiger, because they're going to survive. When it comes to rejection, you're in a tribe. There might be 3 women who you could be potentially your mate. If they reject you, you're not going to have a kid and your genes aren't going to be passed on. So the pressure for thousands of years was, if I'm rejected by the only women, I'm never having a child. This is a high pressure situation. It's not the same now in the modern world, but our DNA evolves much more slowly than the way society has evolved. So we've got these programs that we're running that have been useful forever, and now they're not so useful anymore. The good news is there are subconscious modality we can use to reprogram those emotions, so that you're not getting triggered in the same way. Now, the way that I picture the work that I do, um, is everyone is represented by one of these shapes. And my clients are coming to me typically the one just before the sphere. So they're already performing at like 95%, and I'm filing off the edges to try and to get them to roll as smoothly as possible. A trauma therapist is dealing with the cubes, and they're just trying to file off the edges of that cube so the person can even function in the world. And this is the way that in my mind, as I'm doing sessions, I'm visualizing the work I do. And that's that these memories from the past, these phobias, these self-sabotages, they've created these spikes that make it just harder to get through life. And it's a job as a coach to smooth it off so that everything runs more smoothly, and you can reach your full potential. Um, so have a think. Like, everyone's past is different. Try and have a think in your mind where you would put yourself on this scale. Like, what level of potential are you reaching right now? How much resistance do you feel? For some people, it's hard for them to get out of bed in the morning. For other people, they're very close to optimal, and there's just a few things that if they could adjust, they would reach truly world class. So, how do your triggers impact life and business? In your guys' case, poker. And we're going to we've got a few of these we're going to talk to, but Phil's here. And we talk about these programs that are running in the background in poker that have been holding people back over the years. And in my book, we cover about 10 of these stories. We're going to cover a few of them here. And Phil's going to be kind enough to share his Too Smart to Try program that we covered and we were working through over the years.
Yeah. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Too Smart to Try program, well, it kind of, like all programs, forms early in life, and things come to you easily, um, and people call you smart, and you start to associate a lot of your worth, your self-worth, with being smart, because that's what your parents are calling you, and when they're showing you love, and that's what your friends or teachers or family members of other kinds are calling you when they are, saying positive things to you. So, um, what ends up happening often, and what happened to me, is, a lot of times when something was very challenging, I would just not try that hard. And the reason that I didn't realize, I thought I was lazy, um, because I never developed good study habits. But the reason that Elliot helped me realize was that if I tried something, if I really applied myself and I failed, then I would find out that I'm not as smart as I think I am. And that would be, for me, based on my upbringing, my past, painful, because I associated so much of my self-worth with being smart. And this this came to a head before the Galfond challenges started, because I had, for years solvers had been out, but I hadn't used them. And my fear was that, in this post-solver era in poker, the best players would be the best studiers, and I wasn't a great studier. And so I thought, maybe I would look at solvers and just like not get it, not be able to retain much, and just never be a top player again. And I don't. It was through some exercises that Elliot took me through, that I realized that this fear, and kind of realized that I was only hurting myself by not trying, and I could overcome it if I failed. I could overcome it emotionally. So I had to try, and I don't know. The rest is history.
Well, thank you, Phil, for sharing. And yeah, so it's these sorts of programs that are there in the background that it's not rational when you look at it from the outside, but it feels like you're just absolutely stuck. And as we work through these, we can see the change. Like, yeah, Phil ended up doing the Galfond challenge, and everyone here, I'm sure, knows the story of how that panned out. But where the resistance was there, it just causes that extreme blockage and stops the performance reaching what it should be. So have a think over these types of issues. There are tons of these issues in poker. Poker is a wonderful way to amplify your emotions, because there's money on the line, there's pressure. Sometimes you're being watched, sometimes it's televised, sometimes it's being watched by other people online. Remember that you're not bringing the table isn't creating your issues. You're bringing your issues to the table. For some people, having their aces cracked is an absolute nightmare. Other people couldn't care less. It's not the aces being cracked that's the issue. It's whatever you've brought from your past that makes the aces being cracked is the issue. So it's an understanding that all of us are individuals. We all have our own history, and that's why different things tilt different players. So, what's holding you back? We're going to do an exercise now. So, everyone's at their computer, or if you've got pen and paper there, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to start creating a list. And I'm going to give you guys like 5 minutes to do this. Um, a list of what the best in the world are doing. So, the absolute elite poker players, what do you believe they're doing to be number one in the world? And create that list. So, how are they studying? How are they networking? How are they managing their bankrolls? What are they doing for their health and fitness? How are they organizing their life? What are all of the things that the absolute elite of the elite are doing that enable them to be that level? Now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like to put a ticker across next to the ones that you're doing. So go through that same list and be honest with yourself. This one I am doing, this one I'm not. And I can't see everyone on the screen, but who here is doing everything? What this is a demonstration of is what I was describing earlier. The idea of it's not that you don't know what to do, it's that you're choosing not to do it, or you're not able to do it. You know what the best in the world are doing. There are some secrets, but these are things you believe they're doing, and you're not copying the same behavior. So we shouldn't expect the same results. This is where, again, this isn't a knowledge gap. There's a resistance somewhere. There's a reason why you're not putting in that extra effort, that extra 20% I was describing that gives you the 80% easier life. Learning more strategy at this point isn't really that relevant because we already know what to do and we're not doing it. So if you know what to do and you're not doing it, learning more strategy should come after resolving the mindset issues and at least doing the things you know you should be doing. Now have a look through that list and think about what is the most uncomfortable of those actions for you to do. And is there any physical sensation to that? So if for you, it's going to the gym, how does it feel like building out a gym routine, health and fitness routine? If it's for you putting in the extra study hours, is it for you going to live events so that you can network with other players and make new friends? That's extremely useful for poker players to build out a poker network. Again, you guys are doing it here. But some of you are probably using this community really, really efficiently and building new friendships. And others of you might be sort of hiding a little bit and not utilizing this community to the same extent. Why is that? And what does it feel like? The thought of putting yourself out there, sending direct messages, asking for help. Another big one is having people like asking for help on the hands where you feel you've made mistakes instead of just sharing bad beats and 50-50s. So putting yourself out there, these are the sorts of things that there's emotional work to be done. And as I said, everyone's is different, but we've all got our issues that we're dealing with. And then the way that this sort of work that I do, that Adrian, Sam, Stephen, the others from my team do, is then going back to where this came from. And we're not doing a hypnotherapy session here on this, but just getting an idea. Start thinking back through your life. When was the first time you felt this way? If it's emotional control, the best players in the world have emotional control, and you're super angry. When can you remember in childhood being really angry? I used to get super angry as a kid playing video games, and I'd pull out the controller when my brother was winning. Right. So, but basically you would force a draw every time they were losing in a video game. So start really thinking back through your life as to where you felt these same sensations and what stories you have behind them. One of the ones that comes up a huge amount around insecurities is being criticized by teachers as a child. So being singled out, being told that you're bad or being told that you're stupid by a teacher because it's a person in authority. And then the client believing that they're lacking in intelligence for the rest of their life on a throwaway comment made by a teacher, 20 years ago. And that's the next stage of this. And that's how do we start to reframe these moments? So if you're thinking about the discomfort of being bullied, like all of us, well, nearly everyone faced some level of bullying through their life. A lot of us, as we think back to those moments of being bullied, can still feel the emotions around that now. If you think about your school bully, how do you feel in your stomach? You can still feel some tension for a lot of people. 7-year-old you, when he was being hit by the other 7-year-old, it was terrifying and it felt like life and death. For 28-year-old you, if you look back at that memory, this is two 7-year-olds having a fight in the playground. And it wasn't life and death. And we can start to reframe that. The 5-year-old you who was stood up in class and was told he was stupid by his teacher, or was never going to amount to anything, or whatever language the teacher used, there was just a stressed out, not very good teacher in the room. Right? It wasn't about the child. It was about the teacher having a bad day. And it's all about like going back to these places and trying to reframe, relogic these situations in a way that you can remove the emotional weight from them. The client who struggles to talk to women, and they come up with being rejected when they were 14, growth mindset, fixed mindset, like you're supposed to be bad at talking to women when you first start. You're supposed to get rejected a lot. It's like swimming. You couldn't swim the first time that you tried to swim, and then you got better at it the more practice. The 14-year-old who never asked out another girl doesn't get any better. Now, in the hypnotherapy sessions, these memories come up very vividly, and we're in the subconscious, and we can actually change the way these memories are stored and they're processed through this process. So you're actually overwriting the memory. It's like going into DOS behind the Windows, changing the program, taking a stressful memory, turning it into a non-stressful memory so that the trigger is no longer firing. But I just wanted to sort of talk through this so that there was an understanding of what this sort of work is when it's the deep mindset work, and how that would then apply to poker. So a typical poker memory here is the live cash game player who gets 3-bet over and over again and gets either really angry or really anxious. It's always school bullying. Like every single time I do that, we come up with school bullying. We work through the bullying issues, and instead of getting hyper aggressive or hyper anxious, they just adjust to the 3-bet. And it's just looking for the places in your game, in your life, where there are emotions coming up that just don't make sense, and then finding a way of working through those.
Awesome. Thank you, Elliot, and well done on the hour. So, like we've done on some of our calls, guys, raise your hand in Zoom for a question, and Quentin will call on you. One thing that I thought of while you're talking, Elliot, is something I say a lot is like, I think one of the biggest mindset related leaks that I see people making, or like mistakes I see people making a lot, is when they're reviewing hands, they'll come upon a hand where they made a mistake. Or maybe they're playing a hand live and they make a mistake, and then like 3 minutes after the play, they're like, "Oh, I know what to do." Or they're reviewing the hand, like, "Oh, I knew what to do." So they don't study it, they don't think about it. So they're like, "Oh, well, whatever. I made the mistake, but I know, so I don't need to think about it." And if you know what to do, but you didn't do it, you have a
It's an
performance
issue.
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest indicators that and it could be mindset, it could be, yeah, whatever it is, accessing your knowledge in real time, who knows what it is, but yeah, it's a performance issue.
and,
So
and a lot of the pieces sort of build into that. And that's where, it's like so many poker players over the years, Elliot, why do I have to work out? Elliot, I like smoking weed. Why are you telling me not to smoke weed all the time? Like the stuff that comes up over the year. And it's being able to apply your knowledge in the moment takes an awful lot. And when you're tired and exhausted, it's much harder to do. And that's where as I say, is if we were at the World Series, we had a booth at the World Series this year, and you could see the guys who were in the 50K without knowing what room they were walking into. They
yeah,
look different. And it's like it stands out. Like you can see the buy-ins a lot of the time with the health of the people and the way that they're walking and the confidence that they have. Um, and this isn't all by chance. And when it comes to certainly the really long cash games, like I mean the Macau cash games, are insane. There's guys playing 48 hours in a row or more,
yeah,
and physical fitness is an edge. And as you say, all of these things come together. These small pieces all come together to add up to that potential edge you have over your opponents, and that's what gives those improvements in performance that you're describing there, where it's like, yeah, you knew what to do, but you didn't do it. Okay, why? What can we adjust so that you can do it next time? And no one's always going to be perfect, but how can we reduce the error rate?
All right, we are going to have Cameron first. Thank you for volunteering first, and then after that we have Paul.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah. Hey, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're coming through well.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if you maybe could talk about some of the most common sources of like feelings of inadequacy or maybe some imposter syndrome stuff.
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, almost everybody has imposter syndrome one way or another. So it's something that, we all struggle with. If you're in the right room, you should feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. So that's something that comes up all the time. But these are all, and almost every issue comes down to self-worth and self-love and things in childhood that may have damaged that. So do I think I'm enough? Do I think I'm good enough? How have I learned about love? Most of us didn't have ideal childhoods. And there are things that happen, whether it's bullying, issues with family, with parents, with teachers, whatever it might be. And we end up in a situation where we don't have the same feelings around self-worth that we should. Um, and that's really the root of almost all of the issues. Are just, am I enough? Can I say I love myself? And can I love myself unconditionally? And then that then spreads into self-sabotage, fear of failure, fear of success, imposter syndrome, procrastination, in the way Phil mentioned there. But all of them are like, I need my identity um, to be this way for me to feel good enough. And that's really the root of all of it.
All right, up next we have Paul.
Hi, Elliot. Great
Hey,
talk.
oh, thank you.
One thing I wanted to ask about are affirmations,
Yeah.
and maybe I think one of the people on your sheet, though, Carla Esparza, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just like I sometimes I could see the value in them, but I always feel a bit stupid, to be honest, standing somewhere like say in the mirror and being like, "You, I am this," and but I can see, and then I think actually about the title fight between Rose Namajunas and Carla Esparza, and Rose was fighting poorly, but still in the corner is like, "I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best," and that's kind of how I not want to be.
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to affirmations, I don't think there's any magic to it. I don't think necessarily, you telling yourself the best is going to make you the best.
Yeah.
However, there is something to positive self-talk. I can love myself whether or not I succeed or fail in this because I've put in the process, I've put in the work. The sort of the I am the greatest, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest. I don't think that's quite as useful. So I prefer visualization to affirmations, and I prefer relatively negative visualizations, which is something that not all people in my industry believe in. So let's say I'm working with a professional fighter. I won't have them visualize walking into the cage, throwing a punch, and knocking out their opponent. I'll have them visualize a tough fight where they're getting up from being mounted. Okay, so you're being mounted. How do you escape? You got caught by a lucky shot. You're dazed. What do we do next? What do we do next? And have them visualize working through the negative scenarios while staying calm. And where I've done this in poker, and I've had some sort of relatively big situations where this is played out almost exactly as the situations, is your chip leader, there's five left, there's $8 million up top, there's a bad beat, now you're four or five. How do we deal with this situation? We don't want to visualize an unrealistic expectation of just crushing everything and everything going your way. We want you to visualize remaining calm when things are going against you so that when it inevitably happens, you're playing a game of high variance, it's going to go up and it's going to go down. We want that to be normalized to the extent that your thought process is still, I'm solving each hand as a puzzle and moving to the next one. I've just got a new number of big blinds. And that is what I believe is more powerful. If I was going to spend my time prepping, I would be doing more of the visualization work around that side of things than necessarily just straight affirmations.
Yeah, makes so much sense. Thank you.
Perfect.
If you're a mid to high stakes player who wants to learn more about Beyond the Game, you can head to philgalfond.com/beyond the game or find the link in the description below.
Here we go. Chris, up next.
Hi, Elliot. I don't know if it's exactly a question or more of a comment, but when you were giving your talk, I was immediately thinking about the fact that there's like one particular opponent I play with all the time at poker that I always tend to play poorly against, or that I tend to have my worst sessions when he's at the table. and he's not necessarily even a good player, but for whatever reason, like maybe his personality or his mannerisms or whatever it is, I'm thinking that maybe that links me back to something like from when I was younger that I struggled with too. And I'm just wondering if you think I'm barking up the right tree, or if you could speak a little bit more to that idea.
Yeah, it's very likely it is that. Usually it's a personality profile that reminds you of the personality of someone in your past. So I would break down a list of what are these personality traits? How would you describe this individual? And then I would think through your probably childhood, teenage years, who is the closest person to that? And that's probably where the triggers are coming from.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll be shocked if you can't work out who it is.
Right. Makes
Once you
sense.
write the list, you'll probably find that it comes up and it's just like, okay, I'm being triggered because he reminds me of my Uncle Jeff, who was always mean to me, or whatever. And then, one of the tools to use around this is just as it starts to come up, as you're playing him, smile and laugh about it and just be like, it's not my Uncle Jeff. It's just some guy playing poker. But even just an awareness that this is what it is. It's nothing to do with the individual. It's just triggering memories from your childhood. And that's why they're outsized. The emotions are outsized because it's not, your adult self dealing with this. It's memories from when you were 8 or 9. And that's why the response is incorrect.
Nice. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right. Up next, we have David. Here we go.
Can you hear me?
Little bit of lag.
Yeah, there's a slight delay on it.
Maybe you can hear me. I wanted to ask about self-sabotage, about like sabotaging bankroll. Let's say you get to like X amount of bankroll and then you'll like, I don't know, for me, I've done staking, I've done playing mixed games or playing online at the same time, or fucking buying NFTs. Any which way of sabotaging, I've found a way.
So we call it a wealth thermostat, and it's like a level that you're comfortable reaching. And I've seen clients where it can be a low level, it can be a high level, but a lot of people have a level that they can't get over or they keep bringing themselves back to. Oftentimes it's a relatively round number. So I'll see 100,000, 500,000, $1 million, $5 million. And what will happen is they'll go above that and then they'll find themselves bring themselves back down or a little bit lower, and then it'll be very easy for them to get back to that number again, but again, very difficult for them to get past it. As we dig into it in hypnotherapy, oftentimes it can bring up situations in childhood where this is a key number for them. So one of the ones was, what was the amount of money the rich people down the road had that your dad used to complain about? And oftentimes people won't, if it was like, oh yeah, they made $1 million a year, that might be a reason you can't make more than $1 million a year. And it's shocking how often it is just what a rich person was when you were 15, something like that.
Okay.
Another one is the most money their dad ever made.
Okay.
And there's this link to a lot of people, they're uncomfortable subconsciously surpassing their dad because of the power dynamic change that might create, and it's safer to not surpass them. So I would look at what is the number and where could that number be coming from for you? And why is your subconscious trying to keep you safe by not getting past that? So this is a sort of one where it's worth working with a coach and digging into, because you're costing yourself extraordinary amounts of money if you keep sabotaging and bringing yourself back to a certain level.
All right. Up next, we have Oscar.
Hi.
Hey.
Thank you for the talk first. And so I really like the concept of reframing the childhood memory. You gave the example of like a teacher telling the kid he's stupid and then reframing it, like zooming out, watching the classroom and seeing an overworked teacher, maybe empathy for the teacher and stuff like this. And I did it in my mind a little bit and immediately saw, yeah, it's a nice concept. Maybe can you elaborate a little bit more on the concept?
Yeah, so in terms of the process, what we're doing is trying to remove it from the child's perspective to an adult perspective of the same situation. So the emotions that are coming up typically are childlike emotions. So extreme anger, extreme fear, self-sabotage. We're responding to these situations as if we're still the 8-year-old you. And what we're looking to do is be able to see it from an adult rather than a childish framework and then release the emotion. So we're doing this within hypnotherapy. So in that trance-like state where the subconscious is dominant over the conscious mind. So we're going into the programming and it's like, okay, there's a big emotion. It leads to an emotional memory. We want to remove the emotion from that memory. So I want you to go back to that 8-year-old you. I want you to give him a hug. I'd want you to tell him that you love him, that he's not stupid, that his teacher's having a bad day. I want him to forgive that teacher. And then you basically work through this process of forgiving the person, forgiving the child, showing them love, taking it from a high stress memory that's triggering fight or flight to something they're very comfortable with. And once you've removed the stress and the fight or flight from the memory, it's effectively changed because memories are malleable. We're overwriting something that's there. So where there was this trigger, so hey, this bullying poker player made me feel like my childhood bullies, therefore there's a big trigger. We're changing the memories around the bullying in childhood until that same trigger doesn't fire in the same way because there just isn't anything there for it to fire from. And instead of, oh, there's a rude guy at the table, no big deal, rather than this rude guy at the table is triggering my feelings from being 7 and being picked on and this being a big threat. Cool.
I want to just jump in. Ellie, this is more effective in hypnotherapy, but do you feel, so for people who can find those on their own, it's still effective to do some kind of reframing exercise?
I would say it's still useful.
Yeah.
I mean, even the process of you guys doing this today and just having an awareness of where this might be coming from. So even if you don't resolve the whole problem, like at a deep emotional level, just getting to a stage where you're like, okay, me being 3-bet in this cash game at the Aria isn't a reason to have a big fight or flight response. I'm feeling this because I've tracked through these memories and I was bullied when I was 8.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be subtle. I mean, as you know, my like one of the ones I go back to, the earliest one I go back to is extremely subtle. I never would have thought it was a thing, but it was my when I was 6, my mom asked me if I'd brushed my teeth before bed, and I said that I had, but I was lying. And she checked my toothbrush, and she saw that it was dry, and she told me. She didn't even yell at me. She just knew I was lying, and I burst into tears. I thought I was a terrible person. I thought my mom thought I was a terrible person. But yeah, it was, I mean, essentially nothing when you think about it.
But for 6-year-old you think you might just lost the love of your mom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for adult you, it's nothing, but for 6-year-old you, it's absolutely terrifying. And that's where I'm saying it's like getting into the adult mindset perspective on these memories rather than the child one that we're all carrying. Because again, it was a useful evolutionary tool. So, that's why.
All right, up next we have Konstantinos.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for the talk.
Hey.
My question is this: where would you start with someone who has a very big fear of closure? This kind of ties with what Cameron mentioned as the imposter syndrome and what David mentioned of hitting yourself back down, basically, whenever you reach a good step.
When you say closure, what do you mean?
I struggle to finish my degree. I struggle to finish final tables whenever I reach them and be leading the pack from a distance.
Okay, again, it's going to be some kind of protection mechanism here. So I wrote a book. They say the last 5% of a book takes the same amount of time as the first 95% of it.
Yep.
Right.
That's
a lot of
Pareto
people,
principle, basically.
Yep. A lot of people really struggle with this because some of it will be perfectionism often because once we finish something, it's out there to be judged. But if we don't finish it, then it's not out there to be judged. I mean, I work with a lot of people who have to do social media videos, things like that. They record hundreds of videos and not release them because they don't feel it's perfect enough. But there's probably, if you're seeing it in lots of themes, lots of areas in your life, again, my guess is there's some kind of self-worth. Am I deserving of this? Do I want the life that this thing creates? Am I deserving of that life that this thing creates? That would be my guess, is there's something along those lines. But again, when you see these patterns in lots of different areas, that's when it's like really worthwhile doing this work. Whether with us or whether with someone else, but I would spend some time and some money probably looking to understand why there's a repeating pattern that's showing up in everything from your education to your business to your relationships. Because if you can resolve that theme, it is going to be really powerful for you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Next question comes from Matt L. He says, "Hey, Elliot, what is the best way to deal with burnout? I find myself often taking on too much initially in my cycles, spreading myself too thin, and then quitting before I've achieved the result I would like. I've now built more guided relaxation in my routine as a hack. Is there anything else?
Yeah, when you look at your schedule and you're building out a schedule, usually what happens, they'll be like, hey, I'd like you to build out a schedule, and we talk about it with the client. They put together a ridiculous schedule that no one is going to sustain over time. It's just like everyone's always, it's like January when everyone's like, I'm going to eat nothing bad. I'm going to work out 8 hours a day, and I'm, going to get 4 hours of sleep. Like it's just, it's the same thing with the schedule building. And what I would say here is like, look at your routine and say, do I realistically believe I could do this for the whole year? And if it's a routine you believe that you can realistically do for the whole year, it's much less likely to burn you out. We're not looking for short-term crazy results. We're looking for sustained results over a long period of time that will build on themselves. And again, this is just usually the thing I see is that the initial schedule is just set up incorrectly, and it's almost guaranteed to cause burnout at some point. The adding the more guided relaxation to the routine is one thing. Health and fitness is another thing that's big. Sleep is another thing that's big. As I say, for me personally, massage has been huge. It reduces my stress level in a week. It's an incredible impact if I'm getting regular massages or if I'm not, in terms of how I can deal with my week. So there's just find what works for you. There is no right and wrong with this stuff. It's what relaxes you and allows you to recharge, and then allow more of that for yourself.
And let's wrap this up. Get you a short little break before your next client.
Yeah, I've got 15 whole minutes.
Yep.
Everyone, I really appreciate all the questions, and hope that was useful for you guys. I find these things really fun. So
Thank you very much, Elliot. This was great, as I expected it to be. And yeah, really appreciate you, as always.
awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Great to meet you all, Phil. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.